back to his regular eye, which is Byakugan, and of course that tells you.
Hello everybody. If you're watching this,
The
hello.
reason why I think his base goes into the Byakugan is because that probably takes up less chalk. Obviously, the Byakugan isn't always activated. You have to manually activate the Byakugan. Whereas the Sharingan is always draining chakra whenever you have it. The next thing I want to talk about is the color of the Rinnegan. Kuroshiki's color of his Rinnegan is red. Now,
So today I'm going to be revisiting an older video of mine with Clyde the Weasel, where we looked into and discussed a hypothetical battle between Madara and Akatsuki. Now, while the video has a lot more likes than dislikes, it's still fairly controversial, and there were a lot of people who weren't super happy with the outcome of the fight. Now, since I kind of have a reputation for being biased towards the Uchiha, and especially towards Madara, I get why people were upset. It may have seemed like Clyde and I weren't being entirely fair to the Akatsuki, and like we were jerking a bit more than we should have. I think the biggest issue with the video is that Clyde and I weren't taking it super seriously. We were kind of goofing off the whole time, making a whole lot of jokes at the expense of the Akatsuki members. So our arguments may not be as clear as they should have. So hopefully I'll be able to avoid that issue in this video. Like I said earlier, the video caused quite a stir, so I've seen a lot of arguments in Akatsuki's favor, and it's come from a whole bunch of different people. I've seen Reddit tweets, double uploaded a video about it, and a whole bunch of smaller videos with the same. But none of the arguments I've seen have really done anything to change my mind. I get where everybody's coming from, but I think a lot of what everybody has to say is pretty flawed. The most prevalent argument that I came across was
That's what I don't like.
Because if team,
on my screen I go to a different tab, or you.
I think that's a pretty flat and just
pretty annoying.
Not good argument. Now, Dragon Ball and Naruto obviously have very different rules, but I think everybody would agree with me if I were to say that.
I mean, as you can see,
the Ginyu Force is similar to the Akatsuki in this
you know, this is pretty messed up. And all I have is this, and I mean, if I had a sword launcher or something, then it'd be much more interesting. But there's like the basic generic ripcord, so it's not gonna be that powerful.
Let's take a look at, for example, Dave to better illustrate the point that I'm trying to make. Clyde and I just kind of laughed him off in the original video, and it probably didn't sound like we were being very fair to him. I joked about how I felt he'd be more of a threat to the Akatsuki than an asset, because his explosves tend to cover a pretty large area.
I mean, I know how to fix this. I just don't think I have the screwdrivers to do this. Because I did look up a video on how to fix this.
And that's not true. Now, that's my own fault. I'll admit I probably should have talked about Data more extensively and made it clear that I think even if you take this friendly fire aspect out of the equation, it doesn't matter because nothing he can do would be effective against Madara anyway. A lot of people specifically mentioned C4 and C0 in their counter arguments and acted like they were some sort of smoking gun or something. And while I'll agree that both jutsu are very impressive, especially considering the point in the manga at which they were used, when we're talking about somebody like Madara, they're completely irrelevant. If Sasuke was able to avoid both jutsu, there's no reason to believe that Madara would be able to do the same thing. And it's not like Sasuke only survived through the plot convenience. Well, maybe you could argue that in the case of C0, but definitely not in the case of C4. He explains in great detail that he was able to see the mini explosives created by the C4 Karua as a sort of giant chakra cloud thanks to his Sharingan. Madara's prowess with the Sharingan is also pretty outstanding. It's a lot better than Sasuke's would have been at the time of the fight with Data, and is even implied to be among the greatest of the entire clan. Like, Madara can tell the difference between a wood clone and a shadow clone just by looking at the chakra flow. So it's possible that he'd be able to observe this and that's without mentioning the fact that to use C4, Data would have to either kill every member of the Akatsuki or tell them to evacuate, which would make it very clear to Madara that he needs to do this. The same goes for C0. If Data uses it, he has to come to terms with the fact that pretty much everyone else in the Akatsuki is going to die. And I'm confident that, like Sasuke, Madara would be able to use the reverse summoning jutsu to get himself out of there. Even if he couldn't do that, he could just protect himself with the perfect.
The only thing I don't like about the string launchers is that they're powerful and all, but they break way too easily. Like, their durability is trash.
The perfect Susanoo offers a lot more protection than a base Susanoo does. And
that's the only thing I don't like about freaking
I'd also like to mention that Madara tanked the series of direct hits from the 9 Biju without using his Susanoo to protect himself. So even if Deidara's suicide bomb did manage to break through Madara's perfect Susanoo somehow, the remaining force from the explosion likely wouldn't be enough to kill him anyway. Now, maybe you can argue that Madara's first instinct upon seeing Deidara start to prepare C0 wouldn't be to bring up the perfect Susanoo, but oh no, man, Madara wouldn't know what's about to happen. He wouldn't be prepared. But since Sasuke was able to reverse summon himself in time to avoid dying, I see no reason why Madara wouldn't be able to whip out his Susanoo in time to protect himself. The series is clear that Susanoo takes no time to manifest. For example, Itachi activated his in the split second before Kirin hit him. So even if Madara doesn't figure out what's going on until the very last second, which is also pretty unlikely since his Sharingan should be able to let him know that
I am pretty mad. So I awakened my freaking Valtryek. As you can see, like the tip is gone. My Valtryek is pretty much yeah, I know. I was looking for my ripcord and I saw that, so I just ended up looking.
Isn't an instant win by any stretch of the imagination. What it boils down to is since Sasuke was able to avoid both of Deidara's trump cards, even if you don't agree with anything that I've said up to this point, you have to do some real mental gymnastics and even be a bit dishonest with yourself to convince yourself that there's absolutely nothing Madara could possibly do if either jutsu is used against him. And this is the sort of thing that I was talking about with the Ginyu Force versus Frieza argument. Like, yeah, sure, jutsu like this are a big deal for people fighting at the Jonin and Kage level, but each level of power and skill have jutsu that they can deploy to defend themselves from stuff like this. So when you get to somebody like Madara, who's so many tiers above people like that, stuff that's deadly at the Jonin and Kage level starts to seem laughable in comparison. There's also plenty of other stuff going against Deidara that I haven't even mentioned yet, such as how he was overwhelmed by Sasuke's speed or how quickly he ran out of chakra, but none of that really matters in the first place. Madara could kill Deidara in an instant if he wanted to. Valley of the End Madara can summon Kurama and have him fire a Biju bomb straight at Deidara. Edo Madara can summon a meteor or two if he feels it's necessary. And any version of Madara that has the Rinnegan can use the human path to rip Deidara's soul out of his body. Like, I think you get the point. And that's not all he can do to end the fight immediately either. Meanwhile, both of Deidara's trump cards would do nothing against Madara, even if you give him every benefit of the doubt possible. I saw plenty of people also bring up that Sasori could use his poison to kill Madara, and that's actually a fairly strong argument, because no matter how physically strong Madara may be, there's not much he can do to train his internal organs and keep himself safe from the effects of toxins. So if Sasori releases his poisonous gases into the air and Madara happens to inhale them, then he'll probably die. The problem with this is the same as with Deidara's explosives. Sasori can't safely release a cloud of poison without putting the rest of the Akatsuki's members in danger. The Paths of Pain may be an exception since they're just corpses, but everybody else would drop dead around the same time as Madara did. And even then, I'm not so sure the poison would work anyway. Like, if Sakura can detect it and hold her breath in time to save herself from dying, then there's no reason to believe Madara couldn't. Of course, Sasori can just nick his tipped weapon, but that's going to be really hard to do against somebody who has a Susanoo and is also as fast as Madara. Even assuming Madara doesn't use his Susanoo to protect himself from the poisonous weapons, he's still really nimble, and you'd think if killing him was as simple as poisoning him, one of the Senju would have done it during the Warring States period. In case anybody's forgotten, Madara was fast enough to react to a blitz attempt from KCM2 Naruto, who is faster than KCM1 Naruto, who is faster than the Raikage, who is one of the fastest ninja of all time. On that note, I'm going to move on to another point I saw pretty frequently. I saw a handful of people claiming that if any of the Akatsuki's members managed to draw even a drop of blood from Madara's body, that it's game over for him because all they have to do is pass the blood to Hidan, then he can kill Madara with his weird Jashin ritual thing. The issue with making this claim is that the Akatsuki would have to successfully injure Madara before he manages to deal with Hidan. And I don't think that's incredibly likely to happen. Yes, sure, the Akatsuki has its strength in numbers, but to say they'd be overwhelmed fighting against Madara is a massive understatement. We saw during his fight against the Allied Shinobi Forces 4th Division that he's more than capable of handling dozens of people at the same time in a taijutsu confrontation. So even if the entire Akatsuki rush
look, don't ask questions, okay?
A little while. I think this is especially true because only a handful of
members
are actually proficient with taijutsu. Deidara and Konan have shown almost zero skill with taijutsu, and the rest of the Akatsuki's members, for the most part, are masters of various forms of ninjutsu and genjutsu. It's also important to keep in mind that he doesn't have to engage the Akatsuki in a taijutsu battle. He can do what he did against the allied shinobi forces and summon his Susanoo if anybody gets too close to injuring him. And Madara's ninjutsu kind of speaks for itself. Like, even one of his basic fire jutsu required at least a dozen members of the allied shinobi forces to work together and perform a combined water jutsu to stop it. They didn't even overpower Madara's fire jutsu either. They just canceled it out. Final Valley Madara would have the 9 tails on his side, which is a pretty big deal since it's a lot more powerful than anybody in the Akatsuki. Naruto's 8-tailed transformation, which is an incomplete version of 1/2 of the 9 tails, was too powerful for Pain to handle. And with the exceptions of Obito and arguably Itachi, Pain's the most powerful member of the Akatsuki, meaning that nobody else in the group would be able to do much against the 9 tails either. Edo Madara would be completely immune to Hidan's Jashin ritual since he doesn't use the first and the Madara that was revived with the Rinne Tensei after the conclusion of the fight with Jubito probably wouldn't get hit by any of the Akatsuki's attacks due to the extra sensory powers provided by Sage Mode. Like, he was able to avoid hits from Naruto and Sasuke at the same time before blitzing both of them. And when Tobirama tried to surprise him by teleporting behind him with the Flying Raijin Jutsu, it didn't work either. This Madara can also use Limbo, summon the Geto Mazo, and use all of the Rinnegan Thunder abilities like Shinra Tensei. My final argument against Hidan being able to contribute in the fight is that he sucks. He's too slow to avoid being caught by Shikamaru's Shadow Possession Jutsu, and this wasn't a one-time thing only either. This happened on 2 separate occasions in the same fight, and then he got his head sliced off by one attack from Asuma. Since Asuma's chakra blades are sharp enough to do this, I imagine that Madara's Susanoo sword could do the same thing, meaning that Hidan will probably be a non-factor in this fight. Like with Deidara, if you want to use an in-character argument for Hidan here, he likes to gloat a lot, and it took him a really long time to actually get to performing the Jashin ritual, and then he spends like 4 or 5 entire pages just bragging to Asuma about how he's going to die. He also needlessly stabs himself in the leg to make Asuma suffer instead of outright killing him, and if he pulls any of this shit against Madara, he's going to get himself killed immediately. On the general subject of the Akatsuki trying to rush Madara down in a hand-to-hand confrontation, some people may think that I'm being unfair towards the Akatsuki or biased towards Madara or a mixture of both. I honestly don't think that there's much they could do against him in a scenario like this. Madara has Shadow Clones, and if we're talking about any form of Madara post-Edo Tensei, then he also has Wood Clones. And the Wood Clones have the consistent You can make it him and all of them convert themselves in a full-body Susanoo. And even without throwing the Susanoo on the table, 25 copies of Madara Uchiha is a lot to worry about anyway. He also showed during his battle against both the 4th Division and the Raikage that even in the heat of battle, he's able to place people under Sharingan Genjutsu. And since Sasuke's Genjutsu worked on Deidara and Obito's Genjutsu it's a safe bet that one of Madara's Genjutsu would work on plenty of the group's other members. You can try and argue that they'd be able to avoid making eye contact with him, but even the Raikage, who was able to dodge having an Amaterasu shot at him, wasn't able to avoid Madara's Genjutsu forever. Now, on the subject of Genjutsu, let's talk about Mr. Tsukuyomi himself. I've seen a lot of people that seem pretty convinced that Madara doesn't have any linear the one I see brought up the Emerald points to the target and grabs them and Genjutsu that way. And I don't think this is a serious problem for Madara because he should be able to see the Genjutsu coming. For example, during the battle that took place when Itachi and Kisame first showed up in Konoha, Kakashi could tell when Itachi was about to use Tsukuyomi, which allowed him to preemptively warn Kurenai and Asuma to shut their eyes. This is because his Sharingan let him see that an abnormal amount of chakra was being built up in Itachi's eye. And now you could argue that Madara may not immediately expect Genjutsu when he sees Itachi's chakra begin to gather in his fingers, but it's fairly likely that he'd just move out of the way of whatever direction Itachi was pointing in anyway, just to avoid being hit by whatever jutsu he thinks is about to be cast on him. Also, even if he does get caught by one of Itachi's Genjutsu, if he's at a point in the fight where he's already created a clone, then the clone should just use its Sharingan Genjutsu to break him out of Itachi's Genjutsu the same way that Itachi and Sasuke did in the fight with Naruto. And while I don't normally like to bring up the data books because they tend to make some pretty wacky claims, if you do take them seriously, then according to the 3rd data book, Sasuke was able to break free of Itachi's Tsukuyomi using his Sharingan mastery on its own. And since Madara has an Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and Sasuke broke free using a base Sharingan, not to mention Madara's skill with the base Sharingan should far exceed what Sasuke's was at this point, he should be able to break out without any problems. Even if you don't agree with this, it's not much of a stretch to say that Madara would just avoid looking into Itachi's eyes since he knows he's dealing with an Uchiha and they're known for casting visual Genjutsu. And if you want to stick with with the finger genjutsu argument, I mean, there's still a lot of holes in it. Like, for instance, Madara can just end up moving around too quickly throughout the entire fight for Itachi to point at him with the long head and activate genjutsu. And even if that doesn't end up being the case, it's also possible that Ephemeral only works on its target as intended if the target makes eye contact with the caster's finger. I say this because Naruto was only trapped in the genjutsu after looking directly at Itachi's finger, and Itachi also didn't even think to use it against Kabuto in a situation where you'd think it'd be perfect, since Kabuto was acting like he was completely immune to any genjutsu Sasuke or Itachi could throw at him, and something like this that allegedly doesn't require the target's eyesight to work. I mean, surely it would catch Kabuto off guard and would probably be pretty effective. But both Itachi and Sasuke acted like Izanami was this busted revolutionary jutsu on blind people, so that makes me feel like Ephemeral isn't nearly as powerful as everybody seems to think it is. Now, Izanami would probably work on Madara if Itachi successfully cast it on him, but I don't think he'd be able to. Madara is shown through his recognition of plenty of jutsu that you wouldn't expect him to know about. His knowledge of the ninja arts is pretty extensive, and he seems to know quite a bit about anything related to the Uchiha clan in particular, so I see no reason to believe that he doesn't know what Izanami is, and since he likely is aware of what it does and the setup required to perform it, he should be more than capable of taking the steps necessary to prevent Itachi from using it on him. Another thing about Izanami is for Itachi to use it, he has to disperse his Susanoo, and as strong as Itachi, I don't think he survived for very long in a fight against Madara without its added protection. Speaking of Itachi's Susanoo, let's go ahead and talk about it. Specifically, the Yatamir, which they're the only reason that everybody takes it up so much. So there's this widespread idea that the Yatamir is an invincible shield that can change its size, shape, and properties, and this is all pretty basic. The only things we've seen it protect Itachi from are
as the goddess of knowledge, she controls the past, present, and future. The hand is the world is a graveyard is the past. Now, thanks to my fallen friend, I can move one card from my hand to my graveyard. That means I can transfer one trap from the grave to the field. That's weird. He went through all of that just to play some trap cards? That'll do for now. That's it? He's not even gonna summon a monster?
Whatever. I don't get it.
What's that? That's
Okay, because
He left himself wide open. Perhaps Siegfried is just waiting for the right card. Like that magic card.
because I
he gave us
am
last
saying
week.
this
You mean the
on
one
the
that used
camera,
to
it
beat Rex
is
and Vivo in
backwards.
one turn?
So technically,
No.
this is me launching with my right hand, and this is me launching with my
I
left
know
hand.
you're watching here, Canva, so enjoy the show while you can. Because soon it will
You should be able to tell I do the right, left, so I'm into it.
I don't know if you noticed, but the duel's over here. You can at least have the courtesy to look at me when I'm about to kick your butt, white guy. You'll have to forgive me. I forgot you were standing there. But with an opponent as dull and forgettable as you, can you don't listen to him! So this duel's too boring for you, huh? Then I'll just have to make things more interesting, won't I? Now! You're a blast guard, so I can summon Jinzo! Thanks to my Jinzo special
About you, it's trash.
Oh, no! Now, Jinzo, attack this chump directly! That's that for a little. Maybe now you'll show Joey Wheeler some respect. I'm not just another pretty face. That's showing him, Joey. You're the man, dude. I think I've embarrassed you enough for now. But go ahead, Ziggy. You were much better off when I was ignoring you. But that's over, because now you've gotten my attention. Yeah. So not only will I defeat you, but I'll send you down in flames. And it all begins now. This gun should look familiar. It's the same bone I used to devastate the last two fools. Oh no, not that!
We were right.
Now I activate the magic card. I got the Valkyries! I'm afraid you're
This stream really is weird. This would young dash.
Every Valkyrie I hold in my hand. Valkyrie? Yes, so the first episode. I'm repeating everything I said. Now, if I may continue, my Fräulein Fawsome has some business to take care of. Let's begin with my favorite Valkyrie, shall we? She's known as Valkyrie Zwei, and she has quite the special ability. Whenever she's summoned to the field, one of my opponent's monsters is automatically destroyed.
I think I might just end the stream here.
Now, if you're at number 2, how interesting
I will see you all